I'm John Fuller, along with Casey Welch, and what we're going to talk about now is the future of the court. Now, this is a difficult topic to talk about because obviously the future hasn't happened yet, and the future of the courts is a moving target. There are basically four issues we want to talk about today, having to do with judicial selection, judicial decisions, the media in the court, and technology in the court. So Casey, when it comes to judicial selection, there are two ways of getting judges. One is we elect them, one is we appoint them. Can you give me some idea about the advantages and disadvantages of each way?
Well, let me just first give a little overview of how it happens in the U.S.
Okay.
All federal judges are appointed by the executive branch, the president, and then confirmed by the Senate. But in the states, because we have the federalist system, they get to decide how to do it. Over 30 states have some part of their judgeship is elected. Some of them are outright elections. Some of them are appointments with an election retention vote. So there's some hybrids in there. But about 35 states have some form of election. The advantages of the election, I think, are kind of very American, which is accountability of public officials to local community attitudes or local prejudices. The people in the community get to elect whom they want. The disadvantages, I think, are significant, which is there is no cap on campaign financing of them. So if a corporation wants to win a particular appellate case, they just need to fund and get elected a Supreme Court justice for that state, as happened in West Virginia when Massey Cole gave a large amount of money and the judge who refused to recuse himself ruled in favor of Massey Cole within a year. So there's the disadvantages of the election process, but advantages also the accountability side. With the appointment process, we can have a committee of professionals, lawyers and citizens who select 5 attorneys as 5 judges as candidates, and then the governor or the legislative branch can choose one. But that has the problem of being removed from the voting public. So there's a lot of controversy around that. I really don't know which direction it's going to go. It's in the media, it's in the legal field. They're debating it right now.
It's a hot topic, and the future of the courts, that's one thing we need to keep pay attention to.
Absolutely.
Now, there's another issue about judicial restraint and judicial activism that I think is very important, that many people don't understand, but I think is important for us to really comprehend exactly how the courts do what they do.
Absolutely, John. And let's take a step back on this and look at what exactly is the issue of judicial duties. The courts, both the trial courts and the appellate courts, have the constitutional and the statutory obligation to interpret law and apply law. That's judicial review. And they're supposed to do that. That's what we hire them to do. So their job is to interpret law, but on the other hand, there is, as you pointed out, judicial restraint. There are a large set of principles, restraint principles or avoidance principles, that encourage judges to not review cases. They're not allowed to give advisory opinions, for instance. There's a presumption of constitutionality, so when they're looking at a law, they tend to rule in favor of the legislative branch and the law. But when they do review a case, judicial review, and they overturn either an appellate court will overturn a trial court's ruling, or an appellate court will sometimes void or nullify an entire law or part of a law, that's when people get really upset about it, and they call that judicial activism. But judicial activism is actually just a pejorative statement. It's an insult when somebody's angry. Judicial activism is used to disparage judges or entire courts when they rule in a way that somebody doesn't like. So if a democratic law is overturned, the supporters of that law will say, it's a conservative judicial activism. If a Republican law is overturned, then the supporters of that law will say, it's a liberal judicial activism. But in fact, it's their job, judicial review.
Yeah.
But tell us about some of the other things that are coming up.
I think one of the things that really is changing quickly is media in the courts, because
Absolutely.
especially with social media, it's very hard to control this. That jurors can now Twitter from the jury room without the knowledge of the judge and give away to the public information that the judge probably wishes was not made public. And so with Facebook and Twitter and all these social media vehicles, the relationship between the media and the court is changing quicker than the court can make rules and keep control of the information that they need to keep control of.
And my guess is a lot of judges don't even know how to use or know about the existence of that technology.
Now, technology can also have a beneficial place in the court. Okay?
In what ways?
Well, for instance, let's say you're a big jurisdiction and you have to transport a lot of prisoners to court for preliminary hearings.
It's expensive.
It's not only expensive, but it can also be very dangerous because
Absolutely.
you have to take people out of jail, transport them to court, hold them in court, and give them their day in front of the judge.
And it probably slows down the court docket as well.
Exactly. And so now some jurisdictions are doing, especially the preliminary hearings, arraignments and such, from the jail. The offender doesn't have to be physically in the courthouse. And so the positive part of technology is there are these types of movements that really allow us to save money, ensure safety, and be more efficient.
Right.
And so in conclusion, we can see that the future of the courts is uncertain, but is dynamic and changing. And it's important because courts impact upon all of our lives.
Absolutely.
And as time goes on, we'd all be wise to keep abreast of the types of changes that happen in the courts.
Cool. Thanks, John. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Casey.
And thanks for joining us to watch these videos.